What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? It's 420 in California. This is Reefer Revolution Live.
But I think in terms of marijuana, and legalization, I think that should be a state issue, state by state. I think it's up to the states, yeah. I'm a states person. I think it should be up to the states, absolutely. You know, I know people that are very, very sick, and for whatever reason, the marijuana really helps them.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Terrorists keep terrorizing. Leaders keep a-lying.
Well, the good people of Massachusetts started selling some recreational cannabis this week. As politicians in Washington get on board the cannabis train for 2020, even the most ardent prohibitionist is now a pro-pot politician. Imagine that. Meanwhile, Canada and Mexico, wow, lots of stuff happening, folks. This is Reefer Revolution Live.
Don't smoke marijuana.
Oh, sure we do.
Every day.
Especially the good people on WeTV, the Cannabis Media Network.
In response to an opioid crisis that...
What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? It's Sunday. This is Reefer Revolution Live, the show where we spark up, talk about marijuana in the mainstream media, the politics of pot, and cannabis care here on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, DLive, and WeTV, the Cannabis Media Network. And when I say we, of course, I mean not only you good folks jumping in the chat right now, lots of folks coming in, but my partner in life, in cannabis, in crime, Coach Chela.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
We have lit up some, sparked up some J's of some mystery house weed. I'm not sure what it is we're smoking, but it's tasty.
It is tasty.
It's organic.
Oh, yeah.
And it's California.
Yep.
So we got lots of folks
So
jumping
good.
in the chat. Who's in there? There's RBU, Brian Arbor, Jingo Ate My Baby, Brian Wilkerson,
The
Deanne
Empyrean.
Niles.
All right.
420 Friday's back. CJ Apollo, we've been seeing him you all week, buddy. In a couple
Happy
of chats.
guy.
Real Jingy,
And
of course.
Dan Niles.
First in, Debo52 and Jojo 420. Welcome, guys.
Nice.
This is Reefer Revolution Live, the Sunday show.
The
So
Sunday show.
it's awesome. It's awesome. We've been checking in all week, actually. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to be doing more check-ins live throughout the week as just the amazing amount of news that just keeps flowing in every week in cannabis.
So much news.
It's so much news. Oh, Bonnie Lee over on Periscope. Saw
Hey,
you jumping in
Bonnie Lee.
over there. So I wanted to say hey to you guys over there. Cosmic Lettuce just jumping in as well. So lots of regulars, lots of new folks jumping in today.
So nice.
So nice. Welcome everybody. Let's get into it, shall we? I think we've reached a nice number of folks in the chat. Share the show, folks. Subscribe, get notifications for when we go live if you haven't. We do this every week for sure, most Sundays, unless we're traveling. But even then, we like to check in.
We do at least check it.
We do at least check in at 420 wherever we're at. So get subscription to the show, ring the bell, as it were, or do whatever you do on whatever platform you're working on. Let us know how you heard about the show and tell other folks about it because we love doing it. And this is a show to educate and inform people about medicinal and recreational cannabis. It's all medicinal. But of course, the big news this week is Massachusetts, and we're gonna cover all of the big news in our headline hash, which of course you can find over at a Cannabis Chronicle. You can subscribe to at dc420la.com. Subscribe to a Cannabis Chronicle, and you will get my newsletter every Saturday at 420, which with the news that I find to be most interesting throughout the week. I miss a lot of things, and Chela finds them for me, and then there's just so much news out there.
So much.
That it's hard to keep track of. But we're going to do a little thing together, you and me. We're going to do a little thing called a headline hash in 4 minutes and 20 seconds of what we found this week. So I'm going to put up a clock. Watch this. I've got a clock. There it is. There it is. There's the clock. We'll start the clock. This is all new. For my little, we've got the clock there over on the headline. So there we go. This is going to be the headline hash, folks, for a Cannabis Chronicle for this week of, what is today? The 25th of November. Is that the day?
Today is, yes.
Today is 25th of November.
Brian Arbor.
Yes?
Elijah, is that your son, Elijah? Hi, Brian Arbor, and your son, Elijah, maybe.
Welcome. Well, let's start the clock, shall we? And get into the headline hash. Our headline hash today starts in the politics of pot. Michael Moore agrees with this show. Put marijuana on the ballot to drive voter turnout in 2020. Kyle Yeager, writing in Marijuana Moment, caught the documentary filmmaker on the last word this week on MSNBC, and he pointed out how they drove millennial turnout this election.
This is what we did in Michigan 2 weeks ago. We had a ballot proposal to legalize marijuana. Largest turnout of young people in we don't know when.
Right. Came out to the polls.
Vote. So many people came out that didn't vote in 2016. And they came out. This is the way you bring people out who are, they don't vote that much, or they don't like the politicians, or the Democratic Party has not been responsive to them.
Right.
They could vote on a particular issue. So we need on the ballot in 2020. Have ballot proposals, especially in the swing states, for legalizing marijuana, for free college.
Michigan starts legal marijuana in early December 6th, I believe. Further east, lifelong prohibitionist turned pro-pot politician Joe Kennedy has seen the green as Massachusetts begins its like clockwork rollout of recreational marijuana sales. Kennedy talked to Kush on Keller and explained the status quo has failed.
Look, am I ever going to love the legalization and the broadening of marijuana policy? No, candidly, I'm not. But this comes down to the fact that states aren't turning back and that status quo is not working. And if that's the case, I think it is time for the federal government to say, hey, let's try to make sure we put the proper safeguards and consumer protections in place that just at the moment the federal government is absent on.
Welcome to the party, Joe. Did you bring some weed? Meanwhile, another Massachusetts rep and new chair of the Rules Committee says the House is going to have the votes on marijuana reform. And after promising debate, particularly on veterans issues, Kyle Yeager over at Marijuana Moment, he pointed out there are several new chairs that are coming into this blue wave that are friendly to marijuana regulations, including Maxine Waters, who's expected to chair the House Financial Services Committee, who told the Wall Street Journal that it is inevitable they're going to have to talk about how federal prohibition contributes to banking issues in legal cannabis industry. And over at the House Judiciary Committee, the expected incoming chairman is Jerry Nadler, recently said that marijuana and other soft drugs should be legalized and regulated. This time they better listen to Michael Moore and make cannabis their top priority for the next session and the election. Moving to our cannabis neighbor in the South, Mexico. Marijuana Business Daily reports that a smooth ride can be expected in Mexico for new cannabis legislation. Last week, a bill was introduced to legalize marijuana in all forms. If approved, Mexico would be the third country to legalize recreational cannabis. Quote, "This is the most important news of the moment in the cannabis industry worldwide," said the CEO of Canadian company Chiron. "We don't expect much resistance in the bill to Congress." Former President Vicente Fox, who sits on the board of Chiron, expects the law to be approved in the first half of 2019. And speaking of Canada, until the explosion of medical cannabis research that is going to be happening, and Chela's going to talk about it in her talk, Canadian nurses, they've been picking up the slack in order to educate people up there in Canada. But apparently, since legalization, there's going to be a gigantic explosion of research in Canada. Since 2001, of course, doctors have been terrified to talk about it. And you've had to jump through the hoops, just like here in America, to do any research. That is over. And starting now, all you got to do is just say you want to grow some this cannabis to research. And there you go. You have got research happening in Canada. So Mexico is not far behind. Canada and Uruguay, and that is the headline has.
Smoke weed every day.
In 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
Very nice.
As I move through into some more links.
Very nice. Very nice.
That was a little rough.
No, you did great.
I didn't do a dress rehearsal, but I think it worked out.
You did great.
And now, since Chela, you found that, of course, that opinion piece in the New York Times.
Yes.
Canada's cannabis experiment has set scientists free.
It's true.
And while Chela has a take, DC is going to take a toke.
Do it. Do it, DC. Yeah, I'm excited that Canada is excited about all the research that they're allowed to do now. They're boasting that they're the first G7 nation able to do the kind of research that everybody really wants. Everybody wants more research on cannabis. So it's exciting.
That's one thing that everyone calls for. More research.
More research, more research. So now Canada is free to do that research. And that's great. I do hope that doctors do catch up with the nurses with their education so that people can be helped right away. Like we heard at CanMed 2018 at UCLA last month, Dr. Cox from Canada was saying that the medical community has to look at cannabis differently than other drugs that they've brought to market because the horse has left the barn, as it were. So I hope that they take a different approach than traditional models of research and take advantage of the vast population that's already been using cannabis for 20 years or more. So that's my toke. I'm super stoked that it's all happening and more every day. I do remind everyone that in the United States, 33 states have legal medicinal use. So anybody in those states, especially my pet subject, cannabis in dementia care, I hope that if you know anybody in relationship with dementia, you will mention that you have heard that cannabis helps dementia symptoms, because it does. There's lots of research that we have links to in various places, and it does help dementia. Way better than anything else that's available now.
More of those links coming to owlsnotes.com in the future with regards to cannabis and dementia, as well as a thoroughly researched article by Coach Chela.
Yes.
Coming soon, so make sure you go and check that out. And a couple of folks in the chat want to say hi to Ellen Blasi, looks like a new viewer. Hi from New York, Chela.
Awesome.
Maybe she's been here. Cosmic Lettuce, CJ Upho, Maxine Waters, she is a joke. Yeah, well, here's the thing. They put impeachment on the top of the list.
That's a big joke.
That's a big mistake.
Huge mistake, guys. We got to make sure to tell all of our elected representatives that cannabis is the issue for 2020. It's not blue, it's not red, it's green, and everybody's down with the green. Let's remind them. Not
everybody agrees with Michael Moore. But he certainly was correct on Trump's chances of winning, and the Democrats should certainly listen to him and put it on all the ballots in swing states, starting in Ohio. Be a good place to start.
That would be.
So look at that. Because whoever embraces cannabis in 2020 is going to get the turnout and is going to get the win. RBU 83145. With all the research, we'll soon know as much as our caveman ancestors.
Yep.
What do they call it? The ancient plant medicine? No.
Drug plant.
The ancient drug plant.
Yeah, the drug plant. Drug plant.
The ancient drug plant. We'll know more.
Okay.
So thanks, guys. Justin Goodearth, purple.
Wow, yeah. Justin Goodearth. Nice.
The purple states need to be purple like those beautiful buds.
Nice. It's true. It's true.
Indeed.
CJ Apo, as to your question about where to stay for the Emerald Cup, I noticed that on their website they suggest a couple places. I would go with the places where people are staying. If we end up going, we'll probably be staying at somebody's house. So that's sort of what we're probably, that's what we're shooting for. We're hoping really to be there the week before, the week after, maybe for one day of the Emerald Cup. But we'll see. We'll see what unfolds. Yes,
we are allowing the grid to fill in itself, and we'll keep you updated as to how we're going to proceed with the Emerald Cup. But our plan is definitely to be up there. So welcome, everybody. Okay, that was the headline hash. That was Chela's Toke. Let's move into our first block.
Awesome.
First story of the week. We stay in Canada now that since we're talking about Canadian research. We did have an article in the Cannabis Chronicle this week, which I brought up momentarily. Canadian University hires first cannabis health research chair by AJ Harrington over there at High Times. You can get that at dc420la.com. But it was also talked about in the City News of Toronto. So let's take a look at this video, and then we're going to come back on the other side and talk about this great, more of the great research that's going on, as well as what's going on up in Canada a little bit with the, now a little over a month into their rollout of legal cannabis in Canada. Here we go.
In response to an opioid crisis that has killed thousands of Canadians, the University of British Columbia is taking a unique approach to addressing the problem. They've created a new professorship to see if marijuana can play a role in keeping opioid users alive.
And to try and, generate evidence to address the overdose crisis, it's a dream come true.
Research scientist Dr. M.J. Malloy is now UBC's first professor of cannabis science.
I became a scientist to generate evidence to support the health of people who use drugs, to change clinical practice, to change public policy, and this professorship is the means of doing just that.
Malloy is the only cannabis science professor in the world focusing on marijuana's role in helping people with drug addictions.
We have preliminary research suggesting that there might be a benefit for people starting methadone and Suboxone to be paired with cannabis. So that will be our first clinical trial. And as I said, we hope to be recruiting the first patients, the first participants early in the new year.
The 10-year professorship is made possible by a $500,000 grant from the BC government, along with the $2.5 million contribution to UBC from Ontario-based cannabis company Canopy Growth.
What we hope to achieve together is to minimize the harm that substance use may cause to Canadian society and to maximize the potential benefits of cannabis as a therapeutic treatment.
In the first 9 months of this year, 1,143 people died of opioid overdoses in BC alone. Vancouver Coastal Health says the number of overdoses appears to have leveled off, but is not declining.
We're starting to monitor people's journeys through the system of mental health and addictions care. We're looking at every step in that treatment journey, tracking where people disengage, and finding out why. And Dr. Malloy's research and clinical trials will delve deeper into the role cannabis can play in keeping people connected to treatment.
In addition to saving the lives of opioid users, Malloy hopes the work he's able to do will change the way people view cannabis.
I've certainly heard, people joking about, stoners and pot and weed, and I hope that those days are sort of receding in the past. Cannabis science is an important new field. We hope it can contribute to human health and well-being.
In Vancouver, Travis Prasad, City News.
So there you go, a new professor of cannabis to study and teach about focusing on opioids addiction first, and the first such to do so. First
at the University of British Columbia.
At the University of British Columbia in the world? I thought it was in the world.
I love it.
But that's good news no matter what.
I love it.
That we've seen it happen in a couple of colleges here in the United States. But there you go. The flood of research is going to be happening at the University of British Columbia.
It shall begin.
It shall begin. And I think he's done a little bit of his own research, probably.
I think he's familiar with cannabis.
I just get that impression.
I do.
Anthony Lawson, do you have any predictions of when cannabis will be legalized nationally? We're getting close, Anthony.
It could be 2019.
We're going to see something happen in 2019.
Something's going to change because of banking, because there's so much money that they're losing.
That's right.
From not being involved in it. Not for altruistic reasons.
Despite Joe Kennedy's, we're going to get that into the national block. We'll talk about that in the national block. But let's talk about this research or this this new university, and more about the research that's going on up in Canada, as well as here in the United States and just all over. There's new studies. What are the new studies that you have just in researching what you're going to be writing about for your blog post off the top of your head?
Dr. Russo's studies in the Frontiers in Integrative Neuroscience are, I think, the most exciting, among the most exciting scientific papers I've read in a long, long time, because it relates to incurable and untreatable otherwise conditions like brain tumor, Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease. And not only does his story in Frontiers in Integrative Neuroscience refer to those studies, his own studies, but it refers to many other studies as well. So I love all the new studies that are coming up. I think it's super important that when you find a study that speaks to you or your community, that you print it out and start keeping a file so that when you have an opportunity to talk to people in your circle about cannabis, you can speak intelligently and about things that are important to them and relevant to them. So when speaking to your loved ones or your community about strides in cannabis medicine and cannabis science, make sure to refer to some studies if you possibly can. People love that.
Doctors love it too. It's one of the ways people are successfully talking to their doctors if they go in armed with studies that have been published and that if you're doing your research, the doctors are impressed, because normally It's just people that come in and say, "Hey, look, I saw this commercial that says I can be super happy."
Right. The pill that starts with an F.
The pill that starts with an F.
Right.
That can cause me to die suddenly, but otherwise it's supposed to make me happy.
Right.
Can I get that?
Yeah. Silly things.
Walk in with Dr. Russo's study or a couple of those and say, "Hey, this says it works for dementia. Can I use it?"
Yeah. Or paperwork about the endocannabinoid system. And ask if your doctor is familiar with it. And if not, encourage them to take some continuing education, because it's super important and it's a vital part of our health picture that most doctors did not have exposure to in medical school. It's just starting. Doctors who are just going to school now are starting to learn about the endocannabinoid system. So, with that said, make sure to share the knowledge in your community as much as you can.
Share the knowledge. I'm going to pass you this bag.
Share the bag. Thank you.
Of Roll's Choice from Willie's Reserve.
Vapor, the clean way to enjoy cannabis.
Tasty. So tasty out of the bag of the air riser. Roll's Choice. Taking a look at, there it is. Taking a look at some of the folks jumping in. Holy Cannabis Oil's joined us. Welcome, Holy Cannabis Oil. Veg Scrum Bloom is in there. Growers Love, Danksters, and DGC. It is trimming season, everybody. Thanks for joining in, everybody. Make sure you subscribe, get notifications. Hit that like button. Hit the like button. Share. That's the best thing you could do, is share. We want to get our subscriptions up. Tell people about the show. And we're gonna talk about some more news in this first hour as we move into our next story. We're going to move into a world story that sort of crosses over into cannabis care. Let's take a look at this video from the UK. This is a video from the UK. The UK Cannabis Social Clubs put this up. And this is Greg DeHote. And he's speaking at the Institute of Economic Affairs. And the title of the video is High Time to Legalize Cannabis in the UK. And he talks about his battle with Crohn's disease. So let's take a look at this video, and we'll come back and talk about his story and what we can do about getting their struggles in the UK. Here we go.
Hi everyone, thanks for having us. My name's Greg DeHoot, I'm the chairman of the UK Cannabis Social Clubs. In 2010 I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease and I had a flare-up. And for those of you who don't know what Crohn's disease is, it's an inflammatory bowel disease. It's where my immune system starts to attack my digestive system and literally tries to kill me. There's nothing you can really do to stop it other than taking quite strong drugs like chemotherapy, like treatments. But for me, I've found that cannabis works the best. In 2010, I was given between 2 and 5 years left to live, even with the treatment options and the surgery. I defied the medical advice. I went to America. I received medical marijuana oil in Denver, Colorado, in California, Oregon and Washington, where they have the right to grow their own medicine. They can share it. They have dispensaries. And within a few weeks, I was climbing up mountains. I was going on hikes, and I spent a good 6 months in America with access to this cannabis medicine safely. And I returned back to the UK 6 months later, not really knowing what my healthcare options were. Because of that, I teamed up with other people who were in my situation. I see Penny sitting out here today, who's got MS. Who's involved with the Tottenham Cannabis Compassion Club. I teamed up with other people who are in the same situation as me to try and create a social movement that could help push for social change to create a difference in the cannabis laws in the UK. Because a lot of us are patients, but a lot of us rely on people who grow cannabis recreationally because they do a hell of a good job at it for our medicine. So what we've done is to develop a system now, a network. We've got 160 clubs around the country. They're all, they've got local venues where they meet up between sort of like either once a week, 3 times a week, once a month, and they're a community of people that share cannabis products, share cannabis knowledge. They're a first point of contact for people that use cannabis or want information on it. Sometimes people have problematic experiences with cannabis, and there's not many people they can go to get a greater understanding of it. Online is not often the greatest help. The doctors often tell people that, oh, you're addicted to skunk and you've now got a mental health problem. And for a lot of these people, they don't find that a satisfactory answer. So they come to the clubs. We speak to them about the different types of cannabis. You've got indicas and sativas. So some of them can make you feel more awake. Some of them can make you feel a bit more sleepy. But you've also got high THC strains and you've got CBD strains. And you've got balances of them. And giving people the opportunity to see what these products are and to use them in a safe environment with someone who understands what they are, we've seen a massive change in the way cannabis is respected and treated in this country. It's not such a scary concept for people when they understand what it is that people like us are doing. Now we've got to the stage where we have got 160 clubs. The members of the clubs are growing for each other and for themselves. And we need a situation where it's decriminalised for them. The right to grow is really important to patients. It's a part of their health, their care, and it's a therapy for them in itself. Looking after their own health and having the control over that is really important. A lot of the time, we're educating the doctors about what it is that the experiences we're having with cannabis and helping them gain a greater understanding of it without the patient perspective. And taking into consideration the people that have kept this industry and this movement alive for the last 40 years to the point where now business is looking to get involved in it, where they're looking at putting regulation onto it. The cannabis social clubs need to be part of the conversation because we understand how the market actually works right now.
Wow, I knew we had some hooked up people in this chat.
Highly connected.
Highly connected
Highly
people.
Connected.
And there seems to be more and more indications that we have to be at the Emerald Cup. Because according to Holy Cannabis Oil, Greg is going to be at the Emerald Cup.
This fellow we've just been speaking about,
The video
to,
that we've just heard,
which was about
Crohn's disease and the UK Cannabis Society, which is pretty exciting. That these guys are basically doing what we did in California in the 90s. Was create what really everyone
still
is doing.
do.
What really everyone is doing across the country where it's criminalized.
Still doing it.
We're still doing it. Yeah, you find ways to get your medicine within or without the parameters. Now, Holy Cannabis Oil points out that they have they basically they decriminalized or they lifted the ban on CBD. Right? They can't smoke it. Let's see. Well, let me tell you what Holy Cannabis Oil is saying, because he got some really good information.
Mm-hmm.
They just got off their federal prohibition a few weeks ago, so they can finally do cannabis again. Billy's Buds. They aren't smoking it yet, though. That's right. But the cannabis social clubs that's how it started. That's really how it started in San Francisco and in California, and it continues, through this day.
Right.
A long
Compassionate clubs.
Compassionate clubs, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I'm overwhelmed and blown away that he's going to be here in California. That was a total surprise. Let's see, Roger Christie is one of the original compassionate use care providers in the world who lost everything in the name of helping others, did 50 months of hard time for cannabis.
Yeah, crazy.
Wow. Was that in England?
Crazy. No.
Holy moly. Where's Roger Christie? Because that was
the
Greg.
THC ministry in Hawaii.
Oh. So yeah, I mean, this is the way it's done, folks.
Hawaii's badass.
Until these governments get out of the way and allow people are going to get their medicine. People are going to find ways to get their medicine. And if you think they're not, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, you're going to bring all these bad elements to town. The moms are already there. The people are already, the vets are already there.
That's how come the stuff pops up overnight when it's legal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody, for the praises in the chat. So glad you guys found the channel as well.
Yes, really.
Tell other folks about it. We love that. We love talking about this and bringing you the what we think to be the most important of the news around the world concerning cannabis and as a medicine and it's always as a medicine. But recreation is the gateway to medicine.
Yeah. You think you're doing it recreationally, but really,
that's the way we look at it.
Yeah.
This is a gateway drug, all right. It's a recreation is a gateway into medicinal, not the other way around.
That's right.
And the hardest people to convince that this is medicine are longtime pure recreational users. They have been using this medicinally. They just didn't know it.
Yeah.
And now it's time to come out of the medicinal cannabis closet.
It took my mom getting Alzheimer's disease for me to realize the medicinal properties of cannabis. And I've been using cannabis for 25, 30 years.
Thanks, Mr. Sparks, a lot. Stop by to say hi and hit that thumbs up. Cheers. Thanks, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you.
You can watch the replay for us. We will be up, but thanks for jumping in the chat and putting us on in the background or whatever you're doing. Hey to the trimmers. If you guys are working, it's getting dark out here in California, so I don't know if the trimmers are working. Of course, they work indoors. What am I talking about? But hi, everybody. So that's really great news that he's going to be in California. And we're going to hopefully get a chance to talk to him. I think that would be great, Holy Cannabis Oil. We'd love to meet him. We'd love to sit down. We already have shot out there into the universe rockets of ideas or thoughts for interviews around the Cannabis Cup. So it looks like that grid may be filling in as well. In these rockets of desire are just amazing stuff. So that's very cool. Obi-Wan Cannabinoid jumping in. And a Jingo ate my baby. Yep, self-medicating our whole lives, people. Chong said it. Tommy Chong said it a couple weeks ago on the Young Turks. It relaxes you. That's a medicine. And it doesn't kill you, as we've said. We've been trying. A lot of people have been trying to OD on cannabis for years.
Yes.
People pump their cars full of cannabis smoke.
And the only research that has been funded in the U.S. has been to find the negative aspects of using cannabis, and they are confounded by it because they haven't found any.
That's right.
So that's sort of exciting.
That's right. They killed some monkeys by dropping their oxygen level till they died. But
you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that because that'll kill you.
No.
But certainly the reaction to the plant itself hasn't killed anybody.
No.
Or anything, for that matter.
Cool.
So, cool. Let's move on to the next story. That's really great news. We look forward to meeting Greg and interviewing him and his wife. That would be fantastic.
Start cannabis circles in your community. If you live in communities where it is not exactly legal, or if you live in a medicinally legal state, start circles. Do whatever you can to normalize the plant. Even if you need to start circles about education. Like if you're in, say, Alabama, where we have some folks viewing from Alabama, where it's super illegal, start education circles where you get together every week and talk about it, and start figuring out how you can normalize it in your community and write letters every week to your elected officials. You know, get together and start building this community because it is going to change and it's going to change fast. So be ready.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot faster than we think.
Mm-hmm.
I think things are going to start.
You're
moving.
just escaping vapor there.
We're gonna plug that back in.
Okay.
To answer someone asking in the chat, what is the vaporizer we have? We have the Air Riser EQ. Let's see if you can hear it in the background. Turn it on the fan one.
Jake, how would you find out about cannabis circles in your community? I don't have Facebook. Well, you know, they don't really, Eventbrite.
Yeah,
look at Eventbrite. That's where a lot of the events have been, I've noticed, at Eventbrite. Jake, where are you located? What state? What part of the world are you?
That really all depends on geography first.
Yeah, because like in California, you could go to your local dispensary and ask about them. You could start one pretty openly, pretty easily.
I would say you had that idea. It was have the dispensary should be doing them.
Well, there should be education nights, like at the dispensary that we stopped at in Coalinga. They do education nights at their local library, which is genius. A nice neutral location where people feel comfortable and they can learn about cannabis, and then have information from the people who've come to give the education, and then they can meet them at their workplace. It's lovely.
Or they can, and then they can meet other people that are interested and can meet privately for a, circle of green.
Yeah,
as it were, a medicating circle. But yeah, it all depends on where you are, and as to how easy that is. But there are people medicating everywhere. It doesn't matter what the laws are. They're there. It's just a matter of how open you want to be and how, it's all really, it's a individual situation, individual choice. Because even going down to MedMen and buying legal cannabis in California is technically federally illegal.
Oh, definitely.
So,
speaking of MedMen, I just want to touch on what they were doing earlier in the year. They were doing clinics with expungement, and I think that that's brilliant and great. And it goes back to these circles. So we in the cannabis community have to spread the cannabis message to the wider community. So if you Grand Rapids, okay. So, Jake, you're in Grand Rapids.
Well, that shouldn't be too tough.
Michigan.
Yeah.
So I would inquire with Daily Dope Show about cannabis circles in community, because Brando is super connected.
Michigan's great because Michigan, you're going to be able to meet legally, no problem.
Exactly.
Beginning in December, I think it's December 6th, same as Missouri. Although maybe I'm conflating those two dates, but it's early December. I think our bag is full.
Okay.
Grab. Oh, here I'm doing bag tonight.
All right, you're on the bag.
I'm on the bag.
Here you go.
For sound purposes.
Oh, CJ Apau, be careful of scam events. This is happening all over big time. Research events thoroughly.
Yeah, if you're in the illegal states, I would be definitely buyer beware.
Right. The events that we've attended, we found out through other panels of reputable people in the space. Usually panels that involve lawyers and brands and owners and things like that. So that's how we find out about the panels and things that we end up going to. And at the events that we end up going to, we find out about the smaller circle events. So we're going to be going to a Cannabis Circle event in a week or so in LA, and I'm super excited about it. It's nice to meet other pioneers. They really are the pioneers. They're kind of amazing people, so it's exciting to be around them. It's always exciting to be around like-minded people. So if there aren't any cannabis circles in your community, or start one.
Start one.
Look at Weed for Warriors Project. Look at Normal, your local chapter of Normal, and local chapters of Weed for Warriors. Those are excellent, excellent resources. Do not forget about them.
Big storm heading for Michigan, apparently. So go to your neighbor that smokes weed and have a cannabis circle.
Yeah.
Because apparently it's going to be a huge storm. Everybody stay safe out there. Big snow coming, and it's probably hitting towards Massachusetts too, where they just started selling this week recreational cannabis, and that's been delayed since July. They were supposed to have it started in July, but they finally got it going, as we saw. We will see in the news roundup. Some of the sales out there were pretty crazy the first 2 days. But let's take a look at our first national story, which really, I'm in the wrong playlist. That's why I can't find it.
Well, let's get there before we start the clock.
Here we go. Yeah, before I start the clock. So let's take a look at this video from me. But I put this up. This is a interview of Representative Joe Kennedy in Massachusetts, who, lo and behold, has decided, oh darn it, gosh, oh gee willikers, if I gotta get on board the legal weed, I will.
Well, if the voters make me, I guess I gotta.
The states make me, but don't trust those states. Whatever you do, that's not the way to go.
He's a Fed guy.
And I gotta tell you, if that's their plan,
they got issues.
Yeah, they got issues. So, but let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this video. This is an interview. Killer at Large talks Kush with Kennedy.
As recently as earlier this year, my guest this morning was a staunch foe of marijuana legalization. But as he writes in an article for the online newsletter Stat, quote, given the rapid pace of state-level legalization and liberalization, I believe we must implement strong, clear, and fair federal guidelines, end quote. That is my guest this morning, Representative Joe Kennedy of the 4th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome.
Good morning.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
So why'd you change your mind?
So a couple of reasons. One is the status quo just ain't working, right? It is not working for folks that have criminal records because of marijuana arrests. It's not working for folks that believe that marijuana can actually help them with a medical condition. It's not working for states that have, like Massachusetts, now gone through this legalization process, and yet still are cut off from some aspects of the banking system to federal regulation around and guidance around dosage, packaging, advertising to kids. That's just all of those issues that there's tension with the federal regulatory framework. Two, states are moving forward on this, and they're not rolling it back. You're seeing this in progressive states. You're seeing it in conservative states. You're seeing it from conservative legislators as well. And so, look, am I ever going to love the legalization and the broadening of marijuana policy? No, candidly, I'm not. But this comes down to the fact that states aren't turning back, and that status quo is not working. And if that's the case, I think it is time for the federal government to say, hey, let's try to make sure we put the proper safeguards and consumer protections in place that just at the moment the federal government is absent on.
Well, there's a bipartisan bill that's been filed in the Senate by Senator Warren and I believe Cory Gardner of Colorado. And I believe they touch on a lot of the things you just mentioned. Is that what you're pushing for also?
So I'm familiar with that Senate bill. They touch on some, but they actually don't touch on a fair amount. What it does is push a lot of this to the states and say, hey, states, go ahead and do it. I think there needs to be clear federal guidelines and policy around some of these issues, particularly when it comes to advertising, warning labels, dosage, advertising to kids. The federal government saying that this is solely up to the responsibility of states, I don't actually think is appropriate. There are less federal protections at the moment around marijuana than there are around alcohol or tobacco. And I think that if we are going to say that this should be legalized, that the federal government should come in and set those guidelines. And that's kind of more towards the framework that I'm looking for.
So Kennedy wants, if he's got to do it, if he's got to be on board the cannabis train, he thinks the federal government better be regulating it and don't give it to the states. That's his angle. He's got to get on board, because the states are having trouble with banking and all that. Yeah, we know, Joe. We've been dealing with this in California for 20 years. Longer. So welcome to the weed train. Welcome to the cannabis train. Did you visit one of those Massachusetts shops? Because you really need it. So that's not going to be a winning strategy in 2020. I don't think that not supporting the States Act after Donald Trump has already said he's going to support the States Act if it comes up in the Senate, and I really think it's going to come up in the Senate. So if Maxine Waters takes up impeachment before she takes up banking, which Joe Kennedy just mentioned. If, what's the other one? McGovern doesn't take up cannabis and veterans right away, access for veterans, and goes after some other something related to investigating Trump, really is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they need this agenda. They need this agenda. They're not going to win by doing what they've been doing. And if they're going to follow Joe Kennedy's advice and not support the States Act, and now are they just going to talk and push for like the Marijuana Justice Act, which we know probably isn't going to get passed? Because they can do some real stuff on banking. They can do some real stuff on veterans research. They can do real stuff on rescheduling. Now, in his op-ed, he calls for taking cannabis off of the Controlled Substances Act. So that's the Marijuana Justice Act. That's what that talks about. So he's, this States Act is what you're going to get your crossover with your independents, your Republicans, your states' rights people, states' rights guy, and you're going to get a lot of crossover support. So I think they need to follow along what Michael Moore says, get it on all the ballots before the Republicans do.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, obviously the Democrats are taking according to Joe Kennedy, the Democrats are taking the big government approach to it, right, and the Republicans seem to be taking the states approach to it. And as someone who is not registered to either party, I sort of prefer the states approach with the federal government getting right out the way. Thank you so very much. And this prohibitionist, Joe Kennedy, is finally coming to the party because an overwhelming 66% of Americans think it should be legalized. Even veterans and traditionally conservative groups are thinking that cannabis is miscategorized. So 2019 is going to be a very, very exciting year.
It is. I think no matter what, you're going to see action in the states. You're going to see Connecticut. You're going to see a lot of the states where they have elected pro-cannabis governors and legislatures. Next week, in our next block, we're talking about New Jersey. So you're seeing all of this action that's going to be happening in 2019 and dragging along the federal government. Deschedule? Take it off the CSA? Absolutely. Overregulate? Overtax? No, that's not going to work. Sorry, there we go. Overtaxation, overregulation is not going to work. It's not going to get the votes. It's not going to fly.
No, it'll encourage the local market to thrive. And if they're trying to dry up the local market, then they're going to do something different, something more like what Mexico is doing.
I mean, the states are already overtaxing, so you're going to add another federal tax on top of that? Really?
Crazy town.
That's crazy town. So let's take a breath. Put all of this investigation and impeachment talk on the back burner. Let's have an agenda. Michael Moore also said, put other things on the ballot, other progressive issues, because those won all over the place. So anybody got anything to say in the chat?
Power of the dollars is what they see, and politicians are cosmic lettuce. Actually, politicians are a reflection of the culture. Crappy politicians is a result of crappy culture. I was remarking on the dog in the background and how cute he was. Power of the voters.
Which dog? Our dog?
Oscar.
Oh.
He's so cute.
Oh, Jackpot's pretty cute too.
Jackpot's cute, but
can't really
Oscar's
see him.
being so cute, rolling around in the chair.
Cannabis canines.
Totally adorable.
There's Jackpot in the green. And Oscar.
But anyway, you were saying on to the next, right?
On to the next. Oh, okay, sure. Let's move on to the next story.
Yes.
Our next story actually does take us to Massachusetts, where in the green rush of legalized adult use throughout the country, Massachusetts is now the newest member to be selling adult use cannabis. A little late, but better late than never. And it's happening. And boy, is it happening. Let's take a look at how CBS This Morning handled it on the Nationwide News.
This morning marks a new milestone for legal marijuana. Massachusetts is now the first state on the East Coast to allow recreational marijuana sales. Starting today, tens of millions of adult consumers, including those in New York City, are within a 3-hour drive to a pot shop. Tony DeCopel is in Northampton, Massachusetts, outside one of the 2 stores opening in the state today. Tony, good morning.
Good morning. Well, it is cold, it is wet, it is rainy, and marijuana is still very much illegal at a federal level. But take a look at that. Those people have been building in that line since around midnight. They're hoping to make some of the first purchases in this state since 100 years ago when marijuana was prohibited. And you will never guess who the very first person is in line.
It's another morning of long lines.
I wanted to be the first person to buy weed east of the Mississippi.
For a drug that's come a long way.
I've been waiting 38 years for this.
And first in line, David Narkowitz, the mayor of Northampton.
Is it only a symbolic purchase, or will it be consumed as well?
Actually, people have asked me about that, and I am actually going to probably preserve it and display it because it is historically significant.
Massachusetts is the 7th state to open retail marijuana shops, but the first to open them east of the Mississippi. And it comes as the cannabis industry celebrates a series of new highs. Earlier this month, Michigan became the first Midwestern state to approve recreational cannabis, joining 10 other states and Washington, D.C. And in October, our neighbors to the north, Canada, became the first major world economy to legalize recreational marijuana. But the steady march of marijuana legalization has Dr. Sharon Levy concerned. She runs the Adolescent Substance Use and Addiction Program at Boston Children's Hospital.
Instead of saying, well, we'll assume these things are safe until they're proven harmful, maybe we should be saying these things might be harmful until they're proven safe. I don't think that that's something we've done a very good job with.
We've been preparing for adult use sales for many, many months now.
Amanda Rosatano is the Director of Operational Compliance for New England Treatment Access, or NETA, which as of today sells a range of cannabis products, including pre-rolled joints, loose buds, oils, and edibles, to anyone over the age of 21.
Do you think dependence could be an issue for anybody?
So, I think dependence could be an issue, just like dependence could be an issue when it comes to ice cream. We will advocate using moderation, educate people about cannabis.
Under Massachusetts law, retail shops can sell each customer no more than an ounce of flour or 20 servings of edibles, both in child-resistant packaging. For now, those restrictions and others are good enough for Mayor Narkowitz.
There has been marijuana use going on in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for a long, long time. What's changing is it's now being regulated, it's now being tested, it's now being strictly monitored. That's really the major change that's happening.
And speaking of change, voters here in Massachusetts actually legalized marijuana more than 2 years ago, but it took that long for regulations to be put in place and for shops like this to meet those regulations. Still, the pace of change can be surprising to some people. My own father, believe it or not, stood federal trial for marijuana smuggling in this very state. Today, he feels vindicated, but he can't really handle this new stuff, Gail. He says it's too strong.
All right, Mr. DeCopel, ahead of his time. Hey, Tony, I love the question to Mayor Narkowitz. Great name, by the way, for the mayor. When you said, do you plan to use it or is it just for saving? He seemed to go humana, 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 and then say, oh, yeah, I'm going to save it.
Very clever way to duck a key question.
I thought so, too. Thank you, Tony DeCopel. Always good to see you.
Vindication for your dad. Say hi from us.
Anybody heading to Massachusetts today? Something for the holidays?
No, my family from Massachusetts is coming down.
Well,
maybe they'll bring you something for dinner.
Yeah,
I had a look at
housewarming gift.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Housewarming gift.
As we are.
That would be a federal crime. Actually.
Yeah, total crime. Don't do that. Don't do that. And Cosmic Lettuce mentions in the chat that ice cream addiction is a thing.
Yes, it is.
It is a thing, and it can kill you. Unlike cannabis addiction, cannot kill you.
And I would say that I would find it hard to believe that your grandfather did hard time for. Believe it or not.
Maybe they did, Dave. I don't think they'd be saying it if they did.
No, I know. I think I think I was just, opining on his white privilegeness. But sure, I mean, it's absolutely, everybody goes to jail for this stuff. It's ridiculous. And, but it's interesting that it was brought home to him. But I don't agree, he may not like the new weed, but I like the new weed.
Yeah. You know what? He just might need a hybrid or a, CBD
or a high CBD
dominant.
strain.
Yeah, a high CBD strain.
Or perhaps one of the new industrial hemp cigarettes.
Yeah.
That are starting to be all the rage.
Yeah, or like a 5 to 2 like you had today.
I really enjoyed that 5 to 2 tincture.
I'm
actually.
so glad that you enjoyed that 5 to 2.
I had an awesome day today.
Right?
I had a very
it's really
uplifting
nice
and happy day.
Yeah, so I introduced...
Massachusetts is happy, yes. The people in Massachusetts, they're so happy. In the first day, 2 stores brought in $440,000 in sales, 10,000 units in 2 stores in one day.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's what recession? What recession, huh, babe?
More people on Black Friday than there were on the opening day in Massachusetts. They had to shut down early. You'll see that in the news roll-up. But yeah, Massachusetts is happening, and it's going to be on the ballot all around it and changing, surrounding this is, Maine's already got it. Vermont's already got it. Vermont's going to tax it at 26%.
Crazy town.
What?
No.
That's nutso.
No.
These tax,
not
you
gonna
got
work
it.
out.
Listen, moratorium on taxation.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's what should be happening. And what's personal grows.
Just a really tiny, tiny, tiny tax so that they can set up the office and buy Sharpies.
Do not let them screw with your personal grows. Michigan has good amount of personal grow.
Yes.
They're going to mess with that.
For those of you in states that still don't have any form of cannabis legislation, make sure that whatever legislation does come through your state, that you have provisions for automatic expungement, a social justice provision to provide for people who have had nonviolent cannabis crimes to be automatically expunged, and also make sure that there is a home grow provision. Really, really, really important. Do not settle for anything less than these 2 items.
As a matter of fact, that takes us into our last story, or last block, before we get into the news roll-up of all the regions.
Wow.
We're going to take a look at the next state in this mix that's going to legalize adult use marijuana and probably end up taxing and regulating it is going to be New Jersey. And that's going to happen very soon. So let's take a look at this video, which addresses many of the issues that Chela just brought up in New Jersey's new marijuana legislation, which is going to be debated tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow.
And we are going to talk about that one as soon as we come back. Let's watch this video from New Jersey television, new NJTV, PBS, called Pot and Pastors, Why Faith Leaders Are Getting Involved with Legalized Weed. And we're going to talk about what's happening in New Jersey on the backside.
A stronger and fairer New Jersey embraces criminal justice reform comprehensively. And that includes a process to legalize marijuana.
But what Governor Murphy couldn't anticipate during his inaugural address was just how tedious a process it would be. Now, nearly a year later, the criminal justice reform portion of this legislation could be the very sticking point that holds it up.
It's very disturbing to us that marijuana legalization could move in such a way that makes tens or hundreds of rich young white males, after disenfranchising, putting in poverty, and incarcerating hundreds of thousands of black folks.
With lawmakers slated to move legalization bills in the coming weeks, those with an eye on social justice want to make sure it's a key part of the conversation. It may seem a little unorthodox to talk about marijuana within the confines of a sanctuary, but that's exactly what Reverend Charles Boyer is calling on fellow faith-based leaders to do.
Members of our church's members, there are a lot of people there who are listening to the minister, listening to the pastor. So we want to inform the pastors, inform the ministers on how to look at this topic.
We've had extensive conversations with all the members of the Black Legislative Caucus. We've had extensive conversations with the Senate President, and so we're trusting that he's going to do the right thing. A little concerned about this push for Monday. We have not seen the bill, which concerns us greatly.
If you haven't heard the data, it's stark. African Americans are 3 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than whites, even though both use it at similar rates. Advocates want to see automatic and retroactive expungement written into any bill that lands on Governor Murphy's desk.
We wanted to see some of the money that's generated through tax revenue go back to the communities that have been most impacted by mass incarceration and marijuana prohibition, and make sure there was a clear path for people from vulnerable communities to get into the industry.
We're also concerned that there be some recognition or allocation for prevention and early intervention.
Despite their political activism and influence, the members here tonight say the bill is being rushed.
Do you feel you have enough influence to perhaps hold up some of those votes if the bill isn't at a point where you'd like to see it?
Well, that remains to be seen. I think on a normal day with a normal bill, we absolutely do.
Negotiations over certain items like the sales tax and a regulatory committee are said to be stalled between the governor and legislature. Still, the committee votes are scheduled for November 26th, and you can expect a lot of lobbying from groups like these before the final bill is decided. In New Brunswick, Brianna Venozzi, NJTV News.
So those weed bills were unveiled.
Mm-hmm.
That they're going to be debating tomorrow with public comment at 10 a.m. So if you are in New Jersey and you want to get in on this comment period tomorrow morning, you can.
Yes.
But let me just point out that in the bill are, not only does it legalize for 21 and over, allow adults 21 and over to possess up to an ounce of cannabis. It also, people who have been charged with or convicted of violations made legal by the bill would be able to apply to have those offenses expunged or wiped from their records. The bill directs court personnel to assist with expungement applications and calls for the launch of a statewide electronic filing system and public awareness campaign.
Great.
So that is being debated tomorrow.
It's not automatic, but
in Jersey.
It's better than nothing. So we should call, all of our New Jersey revolutionaries should call their elected leaders tomorrow and weigh in on their thoughts. Yes, set them free, expunge their old convictions, and also, of course, home grow.
And home grow, yes. Make sure that the home grow is in there. Oklahoma has good home grow.
And also make sure that you're allowed to work in the cannabis space, even if you've had a cannabis crime conviction.
Indeed. There are a number of states that have done or doing the expungement. We, in California, had to basically fix it to help because very few people were utilizing the system that had been legalized under Prop 64. So in order to help that, the legislature here in California passed a bill which was signed into law by the governor. That one at least, that puts a time limit of a year and a half essentially for the state to come up with a list and get rid of them or challenge those arrests that would fall under it. And that's the numbers upwards of 500,000, I think, Chela, they're talking about, or more.
It is.
In California.
It's a bummer, though.
Seems like it should be more.
It is. It is. But it's a bummer, though, that people are still going to have to wait, a year and a half to clear their record.
And still essentially should have a lawyer.
Yeah,
you gotta have a lawyer.
It's not like it's easy, but like I was mentioning earlier, MedMen has been holding clinics, and the Drug Policy Alliance. Check out the Drug Policy Alliance, guys, if you're interested in, or if you need, or if you know anybody who needs some information on expungement. The Drug Policy Alliance is really great about that. And call your elected representatives and make sure that you weigh in on how important this is. Those of us who are lucky enough to have been using cannabis for 30, 40 years already, who have not been arrested for one reason or another, like maybe we're white as the driven snow. need to make sure to speak up for those who have paid the price that we got away with. So I'll be calling, even though I'm not from New Jersey or in New Jersey. I have family in New Jersey.
You sure do.
I'll be calling tomorrow just to weigh in. And I'll make sure to let my family know that they could please call tomorrow as well.
Who are actually in the CBD business.
They are, so hopefully they'll definitely be calling.
So New Jersey, it's happening, probably early 2019. This legislation is going to be signed by the governor, and you're going to have legal cannabis, legal recreational marijuana in New Jersey. And make sure you keep an eye on those, that the people are allowed to grow their own medicine, and that they don't overtax and regulate the thing. I mean, we've got now they're big. Now all the prohibitionist complaint is, oh my God, they're recalling. Look at all this weed they're recalling from Colorado because they found things. It's like, so now you're complaining that we're giving you clean cannabis? That's your complaint now since we've won? They're off the market. Those things are being taken off because that's happening in Canada too, critters. But good on you, New Jersey. Let's get out there and do it right. Let's help New York do it right. We're going to talk about in the afterburns, CJ. You guys, there's a lot of conversation happening in the chat about events, and we're going to talk about that a little bit in the afterburn, as well as in the chat as we get into to the news roll-ups. But that wraps up our first hour here on DC Reefer Revolution Live, DC 420 LA. Make sure you subscribe, everybody, and get notifications. Ring that bell. Share the broadcast. That wraps up our first hour, and we're going to get into the afterburn here, where we're going to roll into some news from local markets around the country as well as Canada, and just stuff that just so much comes in every week. We go live during the midweek too to just show videos and have watch parties. So the afterburn is going to be tonight is going to be a watch party of some videos of news around the country. And at some point we'll be doing phone calls in the afterburn, as well as interviews. Somebody asked, CJ, is it CJ? If we could get someone on the Timbuktu.
Timbuktu.
If we could get a doctor on the show to explain the endocannabinoid system, I bet we could, and we will work on that. We are going to have a number of, and we just found out about a couple possible more interviews on the show tonight. So we will be working on some interviews. Go ahead, Chela.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to point out that at healer.com and also at the Cannabis Chronicle, DC 420 LA, posted a really good story about a bunch of different groups that are focusing on educating older people, and Silverheads has a website that has some videos about the endocannabinoid system.
Oh, do they?
Well.
Oh, that's fantastic. That was in High Times, actually.
Yeah.
And you can go to DC420LA.com to get a link to this story. Silverheads, medical cannabis advocacy for seniors.
Yes. And
Grannies
they have a bunch
for grass.
Yeah. And if you keep looking at, those are a bunch of different resources there. And some of them have, some videos attached to their websites. And healer.com has some really great videos. And also, if you're looking for a doctor in your community that knows about cannabis medicine, you can look at the Society of Cannabis Clinicians.
That is a pretty amazing resource, actually.
Yeah.
Healer.com, and that he is also associated with Green Flower Media.
Yes.
And that is an amazing resource. If you go to Green Flower Media, you can find a lot of education. They even have courses.
Yeah.
About
so does healer.com.
And so does healer.com.
I think I'm going to take healer.com's course that's $250, but you get certified and you get to learn a whole bunch of stuff. And
we're investigating those and researching those to see which one is the best one.
I like the healer.com ones the best so far. I've checked out a bunch of them. If anybody in the chat, maybe Holy Cannabis Oil, knows of a course, I need a course. I need some accountability. I won't just read the book and do the thing. I have a whole bookshelf full of stuff that I haven't read. So I need a class. Healer.com has a good looking course that looks pretty great to me, actually. So, pretty comprehensive, and you get a little certification at the end, and ongoing. And I love how he presents information and that he makes great memes. And only thing is that he's in Ohio. Dr. Sulak.
Dr.
Yeah.
Sulak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And his videos are great. His memes are great. Very informative, very educational.
He's on all the socials, and I love that about him also, because if you're
passionate.
Yeah, like I would probably be somebody who would be helping seniors learn more about stuff, and it's nice to use his tools to do so.
Yes, Jocelyn Russell, DC 420 LA is an ancient show. We're so ancient. But this is just an evolved version of the show, to tighten it up. And so that's our first hour. And what are you going to do for the next 2 hours? You're going to hang out with us in the afterburn. That's what you're going to do. We're not going anywhere.
No, we're just
we're just making a tight hour so we can sell the bugger.
Yeah, we're going to try and make some money, and break it up into little short bits so we can get some more people to come and join us here.
So we don't have to ask
nice people
for Patreon and all that kind of stuff. And
I don't want to do that.
We can get some money coming in so that we can get our gear together so we can come up and do all these interviews that we're planning to do for the Emerald Cup. We might have to, actually we're going to probably rent it to check it out anyway, but we're going to put a package together, and we're really, our goal really is to have this show be on the road all the time and just go from cannabis farm to cannabis farm across legal states, starting on the West Coast.
That would be so rad.
And interview people and do our show live whenever we want to, and of course on Sunday.
Yes.
And meet amazing cannabis people around America.
Yes.
And
introduce seniors to cannabis.
Introducing seniors.
And give virtual dementia tours to communities.
What an amazing life, right?
Oh my God,
what an
so
amazing life.
I love it.
And our home base here from the hippie enclave of Mount Washington in Los Angeles.
That we totally love.
But we could take our two cannabis canines with us.
One for sure.
That are just chilling right here.
We will definitely take Jackpot with us.
Jackpot is a good road dog.
He's a good traveler. Oscar, not so much. Not so much. Got a good road
Oscar's
dog.
11.
Cool.
And he's getting grumpier by the day.
Yeah. But hey, good show, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Great show, guys. Stay tuned.